Kailasanatha Temple, the largest monolithic sculpture in the world, carved out of single rock. Because of its size, architecture, and sculptural treatment, this temple is considered as one of the most remarkable cave temples in India. This temple is dedicated to Lord Shiva. The stone carving tradition in India is one of the richest in the world. Guilds of masons and stone carvers have existed here since the 7th century BC. The skills were handed down as family lore from father to son, a practice prevalent in some parts of the country even today. The Kailasnatha Temple is notable for its vertical excavation. The work started at the top and progressed along the slope of the mountain. The drill marks are still visible on the surrounding walls, and the technique is used even today in some stone quarries of Rajasthan. It is important to give a thought to the technique, as it would also suggest the chronology of sculptures. It is clearly visible in all the cave complexes that the scooping out of rock is immediately followed by sculpting. The masons and sculptors worked simultaneously. The classical tradition of stone carving was closely linked with architecture. All major temples of India illustrate the rich tradition of stone carvings. Kailasnatha Temple features the use of multiple distinct architectural and sculptural styles. The temple architecture shows the traces of Pallava and Chalukya construction styles. It has many resemblance in style and plan with the Kailasa Temple at Kanchi and the Virupaksha Temple at Pattadakal, but it is twice the size and sculpted out of rock instead of being built with blocks. The sculptors took the Kailasa and Virupaksha temples as their models. When you construct a temple from top to bottom, you can make changes as you go up and make it more stable. But when you excavate a temple out of rock from top to bottom, you cannot make changes or afford to make mistakes. Since Kailasa temple was cut out of rock, the sculptors could not visualize how deep they could go in the rock formation. They also did not know whether it was a solid rock formation that continued deep down. So they used the measurements of Kailasa and Virupaksha temple as models and multiplied them for the rock cut at Ellora. But the modern world does not believe or accept that the ancient Indians could have risen to such heights of engineering and architectural perfection without the aid of modern instruments. So they created a theory that this was created by the beings from the outer space, who might be called aliens. And that is why this is the only temple in the whole complex which can be seen from the sky. But this statement is an insult to the great craftsmen of India. The people who say of our ancient Indians who have created such marvels of construction have no concept of greatness. We'll put all our modern architects along with their fantastic technology and equipments to shame. It's funny to hear people saying it's the work of people from outer space, because what is the purpose of those beings from outer space to make a huge and similar temple like other temples built by human beings, that too on earth? There are episodes from epics Ramayana and Mahabharata on respective panels of the temple. How can this be known to beings from outer space? There are two inner courtyards flanking the entry passage. Each courtyard in the north and the south has a gigantic elephant carved out of a single rock. They also have victory pillars, each about 15 meters tall. Elephants were the favored animals of the Rashtrakuta kings, who are known to have won several battles with their elephant brigade. Hence, the two monolithic elephants signify Rashtrakuta supremacy. The two freestanding pillars of victory further emphasize the great power of Rashtrakutas. The roof of Mahamandapa has four sculptures of lions, each with a raised paw, standing in a circle. Some people say these lions from the sky can be seen as X mark and a symbol for beings of outer space. But the unknown truth is that these animated lions are believed to be the guardians of temple complex. Four sculptures of lions guarding the four sides of the temple. Really, there isn't much mystery about how it was carved. Following the methods developed from over 1,000 years of man-made caves, it was simply the product of a bunch of men and their chisels. Finding a nice spot, they began at the top center of a mountain and worked their way down in pyramid-like manner, every day chipping stones away. There was no rough formation of the entire temple. Then going back to give the details. Full detail was carved as they went, because the masons and sculptors worked simultaneously. Between 500 to 600 men would have worked on it at one time, or so modern estimates go, and it likely took over 100 years, just a bunch of men slowly chipping away. Simple as, but no less awesome, because this is the largest monolithic structure on the earth. The first and natural series of questions researchers and archaeologists ask when they discover such an astonishing structure is, when was it built, who built it, and how was it built? They go back to books of history and come up with their own theories. In reality, if we look at the history from Vedic point of view, nothing will confuse us. For example, archaeologists go on arguing as to who built these gigantic and mystical structures around the world. But if they take into consideration that according to Vedic scriptures, there have been highly advanced civilizations in the past, and the size and strength of the human beings in previous ages have been enormous compared to the today's human beings. When we talk about Vedic scriptures or Puranas, people call it as mythology. But when we think better and broader, there will be no word of mythology. Even modern scientists are getting closer to accept Vedic science as an authority, so why not historians and archaeologists? Mythology is introduced by some foreigners who want to prove us and our ancient engineering and technology was false and a part of myth. We have got our historical evidence from birth to wars and everything related to these places. The Kailasanatha Temple lacks a detailed inscription, but it is clear that it was commissioned by Rashtrakuta ruler. Its construction is generally attributed to the Rashtrakuta king Krishna Raja, based on two epigraphs. The Baroda copper plate issued in 813 at a place called Siddhamshi in Gujarat by Karka Suvarnavarsha, a Rashtrakuta king, mentions Krishnaraja as the patron of Kailasanatha Temple at Ellora. This copper plate and the Kadamba grant of Govinda Prabhuta Varsha, another Rashtrakuta king, attribute the creation of this monolith to Krishnaraja I. There is an ancient Marathi legend which gives the reason for such a unique architectural approach. An architect named Kokasa who carved the Kailasanatha temple in order to please the queen of Rashtrakuta king of Ellora. The temple was named Manikeshwara after the queen. It has been proved that Kokasa was indeed the chief architect of the Kailasanatha temple as it later came to be called. Some 11th to 13th century inscriptions from central India mentions architects born in the illustrious family of Kokasa. There are many rock and cave temples dotted all over India which show the great knowledge of mathematics, geometry, and engineering which our ancient Indians had. But the modern mind does not understand that these people were not mere craftsmen in the modern science who worked only for the pay they would receive at the end of the day, but each one of them must have been an inspired artist who worked for the sake of art and not for the remuneration. Above all, they must have had complete devotion to God. Their whole mind and hands must have been dedicated to the service of their beloved Shiva. What is the doubt that they must have been divinely inspired and helped by Shiva himself? Both the architects who conceived such a wonder and the sculptors who executed it must have been adherent devotees of Shiva. When we look at some of the other fantastic Shiva temples in India, we will be forced to conclude that this also must have been designed and executed by Indian artists, not by people who came from outer space. Consider the ancient temples of Lord Shiva from Kedarnath temple in Himalayas to Rameshwaram in the south, with Kaleshwaram, Srikalahasti, Ekambeshwar, Tallai Nataraja temple are aligned in a geographic straight line. These temples have existed for thousands of years when there was no satellite technology to measure the latitude and longitude. The distance between Kedarnath and Rameshwaram is 2383 kilometers. Who can explain how they were placed in the same longitude or a straight line? Shiva has 5 temples built, representing the manifestation of Linga in 5 elements of nature named as Panchabhuta: earth, water, fire, air, and space. Speciality of these 5 temples is that they were built according to the yogic sciences and are placed in certain geographic alignment with each other, so that the entire region reverberated with the possibility they offered, which are still unable to understand how they did it. Surely we cannot attribute all these miraculous creations to some aliens who came from outer space. Consider Tallai Nataraja Temple, located at Chidambaram, as an example, which shows the great knowledge our ancient Indian riches had about astronomy and astrology and geometry. This is the temple in which we find Shiva as the cosmic dancer with his uplifted foot. And the modern scientists have proved that his big toe is the center point of Earth's magnetic equator. But how many of you know this had been told to us by Tirumala, the great Tamil scholar 5000 years ago? Nobody believed this, but now that modern scientists have verified. How did Tirumala came to know this, and how did the architects who built the temple know this? Again, these are mysteries which we cannot answer, though we have so much of technological knowledge. This type of works require a mind-boggling amount of pre-planning and mathematical and engineering genius which we cannot even imagine. If our ancients could have taken all these things into consideration when constructing this temple, why should we doubt their ability to construct a huge monolithic like Kailasanatha Temple at Ellora? Just because we are unable to understand their towering personalities, it does not mean that they did not exist. These great beings enlightened this holy land of India in ancient times. As far as we Indians were concerned, these mysteries were all possible to our Indian sages who worked on a platform totally different from ours. We are all 5 sensor beings, but they were multiple sensor beings. We use less than 10% of our brain, whereas they used 100% of their brain. We must agree to this, that it was made by human hands only, and yes, we had to think out of box. There is something we are missing, or we can say that we have lost that technology with which it was made. And we strongly believe that everything related to our ancient engineering and technology was stored in Nalanda University, which was an ancient center of higher learning in India. But Nalanda University was ransacked and destroyed by an army under Bakhtiyar Khilji in 1193. The great library of Nalanda University was so vast that it was reported to have burned for 3 months after the invaders set fire to it. This is the time and place where we lost our ancient but advanced technology. Many people refuse to accept the role of Islamic invaders in the decline of art, culture, science, and technology in India, while the invaders themselves were proud of their achievements and clearly explained in their memoirs. Just imagine that if ISIS reaches Europe, destroys Vatican, burns all the libraries, destroys Oxford, Cambridge, Stockholm University, and all other universities, what will remain of Europe? It will lead to the belief that Europe never existed. The same happened to us over and over with each Islamic invasion, and today, because of this, we are suffering from a word called mythology.